Welcome to CEDEFOP. We start even earlier. This is already a signal that Greece is changing, we hope. It's our pleasure to have you here. It's the opening session of the conference on the impact of globalization on VET, challenges and opportunities. And this actually has become a tradition for CEDEFOP to organize every November, and this tradition goes back to 9 years right now, events, let's say, dealing with qualifications, learning outcomes, European tools, and all relevant issues. This tradition includes also, unfortunately, strikes, because during all these 9 years we had always a strike. This time we had a strike by Lufthansa, but we were lucky enough it was cancelled, and so you will have the opportunity to leave tomorrow without any problems. This is an important dimension we should tell you before everything starts. From the title of the conference, you know that the focus is on globalization, and there are many ways to define this globalization. One that is, I think, close to what we expect also to discuss today is the rapid acceleration of cross-border flows of capital, goods, services, people, and ideas. And when we're discussing about globalizations, we always think of sayings like think globally, act locally, and especially when we are dealing with this quote, we link it to planning, to environment, to education, but even to businesses. Today our focus will not be on goods and capitals, but it will be on education and training. And it is self-evident that whether people approve or disapprove it, globalization exists. And it is increasingly affecting VET in multiple ways. This is actually the main issue, the main topic that should be discussed during these 1.5 days. And what I can just say for the beginning, because then we will have a number of presentations, is that globalization actually brings in mind connections that exist between economics, development, and education. And this multifaceted force that is impacting all domains creates the necessity to discuss the different links and implications that are created in all these different areas. So a conference on globalization, and I'm very glad because we managed to have a global, we could say, audience. We have more than 30 countries participating in this event. We have participants from Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, and India. So this already gives a global dimension. And we are very happy because we don't have the regular participants. Apart from many of the well-known participants, we have also representatives from sectors, from employers, trade unions, European and international organizations and bodies. And I believe these are the main elements that could lead to a successful event. I hope it will be a successful event. But I think I talked too much. It's time to give the floor to our director. James Callega will officially open the event, accompanied by Kuhn Nomden by the European Commission.
Thank you very much, Lucas. He has already delivered half of my speech in welcoming you all to this lovely place called Thessaloniki. The weather has changed, as you have seen, after the storm yesterday evening, which we haven't organized ourselves, of course. But we are glad to see so many new faces and so many old friends as well, because this is a conference which, to my mind, I go straight to the subject. It's not mainstream VET that you will be discussing in the next 2 days. You will be discussing a process which we believe very strongly it will have, and it's having, an impact on VET. So it's not about a subject in particular which is related to VET, but it's about VET as a whole, VET as a process, VET as an important sector for our economies, for our growth, for our people who wish to have a job and to stay in that job for their life. So this is a very important conference which we have been working towards for at least 1 year, and I really want to thank the team that Lucas has led. I'm seeing here Philippe Giraud, but also Yorgos Kostakis and Ioana Baziakou, who have done an excellent job to bring you here from all corners of the world, as Lucas was saying earlier on. And I really think that by focusing on this subject, we are verging on redefining VET and seeing VET in a different way than we have been seeing VET for the last 50 or 60 years. Because here we are dealing with a process which is here to stay, a process which is changing many of the sectors that we know of today, a process which is giving jobs to our young people, a process which is keeping people in their jobs, and a process which inevitably will change the way we deliver VET. This is how important we feel this conference is, and why we are so glad to cooperate with the Commission to share with you our thoughts. And here I welcome Koen, who will be addressing you in a few moments. Now, I will not delve into the definitions of globalization, because my colleague has done that before. But it is one of my pet subjects. If I go back in life, at least 15 years from now, it was a subject which I introduced in the Faculty of Sciences at the University of Malta in 1999. My unit used to be called Globalization and International Relations. It was a fascinating subject at that time. Very few people were talking about globalization, and my students were all hyper when talking about globalization, because they were touching globalization with their hands, but they couldn't really put their fingers on what really globalization is all about. And I still recall proposing a textbook, which at that time was by David Held, called Global Transformations, which I read in 3 days. 400 pages in 3 days was for me a record, because I take time to read learned books. But it was fascinating because at the end of the day, the authors asked the students to take a decision. And he posed an issue in front of us, which I would like to pose to you today. You will be faced by a number of questions later on in the day, which I listed here, and which I try to give very simple answers, and you will hear the answers in a minute. The answers are the following to these questions. The questions my colleagues have asked you are the following. Is globalization having an impact on VET? Honestly, I would say yes. Is globalization changing VET? We will have a keynote speaker here, and probably he will say, yes, it is changing VET. Is globalization changing what and how we learn? The answer is inevitably yes. Are cross-border qualifications enabling employability? The answer is definitely a yes. Will national authorities and international sectoral awarding bodies benefit from each other, from their cooperation? The answer is definitely a yes. Is it worth looking beyond Europe? And Lucas was mentioning the participants coming from the Far East, from Australia, from New Zealand. Does it help us to understand and to go beyond Europe to understand international qualifications? And the answer is still yes. And do we need to develop VET for a globalized economy, which will be the last panel discussion? And the answer is yes. So all of these are yeses, except for one no to a question which you will be asked later. Can we afford to ignore the structure, the process, and the value of international qualifications? My answer would be a no. We cannot ignore how international qualifications are being organized and the process behind them. So what was the question that David Held and others were posing to me and to my students 15 years ago? He gave us a choice, and he said, you can wear 3 hats or you can choose one of 3. You can either be a hyper-globalist and think that the world has changed in such a way you need to forget all about what is national and what is cultural, related to your land and to where you live. These are the hyper-globalists. Anything that happens at a global level is what determines the way we live. The other extreme is to be a skeptic. Anything which is global, from YouTube to Google to anything else, you refuse to recognize or acknowledge. These are the skeptics, that they believe everything should be national. Everything should be channeled through the national authorities. And then there is the third group, which are called the transformationalists. They are neither hyper-globalists and they are neither skeptics. They try to understand, absorb, and change in the process. At that time, and up till 10 years ago, I was a transformationalist by creed. I used to believe, yes, this is a process of transformation. But today I think we need to go deeper into the subject. And my conclusion is that at times when I talk about education, I'm not talking here about performing arts. I'm not talking here about logistics, about banking, I'm seeing Mario there, about aviation, about shipping. Here I would not have a choice. I need to be a globalist in any case. But when you talk about education, there are moments when I need to wear my hyper-globalist hat and say, the influence of the world is affecting education for sure. What is happening around the way knowledge travels, the way knowledge is distributed, I cannot shut the doors. I have to be a hyper-globalist. I have also to be a skeptic and ensure that quality and relevancy and the employability of our young people is secured. And I need to be also a transformationalist and see how these two extreme situations can be channeled in such a way that the impact of globalization on VET is a positive impact. So this is what I would like to leave you with, because I know that there are many other speakers after me. All I would like to conclude is that we need, in our discussions, to find out whether we could have or we could create a symbiotic relationship between the national authorities and the global education and training players. Symbiotic because I feel that the two processes should be interdependent because they mutually benefit from each other's recognition. And last but not least, I think we, as CEDOFOP, we have been working towards achieving a more globalized approach in VET by involving ourselves in several projects. I will just mention a few. We have been participating in the interagency group with UNESCO on TVET, Technical Vocational Education and Training, together with other key players like ILO and World Bank. We also participate very actively on the World Economic Forum on a summit on the focusing on the future of jobs. We have been referencing a European brand such as EQF to the national qualifications frameworks of New Zealand, Australia, and Hong Kong. And now, through the team within the Department of Systems and Institutions, we are embarking on this new study on the globalization of VET. Just be aware of two challenges which we need to address when choosing between these three hats. There is the challenge of subsidiarity, where education is concerned, which is extremely important. We cannot ignore. We need to reshape, restructure, reorganize our thoughts of how to interpret subsidiarity in the context of VET and international qualifications. And the other challenge which should be taken into account is the issue of quality assurance, which, of course, as you know, is key to relevancy. That concludes my introduction. Last week, when we were at the European Economic and Social Forum, I ended my speech in the same way I will end it now, with an African proverb which says that if you want to go fast, and this is what globalization teaches us, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. And this is what I augur that you do today and tomorrow, and that this will be the new brand for VET for the next 50 years, that we go together with international qualifications, with sectors which have developed such a huge amount of knowledge and quality that they cannot be ignored, but that they should feel that CEDEFOP and your national organizations are also their home. Thank you very much.
Thanks, James, especially bringing the African flavor, because Africa is one of the continents missing from this event. And also thank you for answering all the questions of the event.
We can conclude.
But instead of concluding, I will give the floor to Koen Nomden from the Commission.
Yeah, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank CEDEFOP for the organization of the conference and also for the inspiring introduction. So I have a really difficult task because I will not be able to improve that one. But it was really inspiring, and I think it really sets the scene for this conference and why it is important. And it's needless to say that on this kind of events also CEDEFOP and the Commission, we work really closely together also to build the agenda and also to make sure that what is discussed here is also coordinated with future policy intentions of the Commission. So welcome to everybody, also on behalf of the European Commission, and a particular welcome indeed for those who made a long trip to come here and to participate, but also to share their experiences, because I think globalization, it's not only Europe that is facing globalization, but also Hong Kong, also New Zealand, also the Philippines and all other countries, India, they all face globalization. And they can benefit from it, but they also face the challenges of globalization. So, as already was hinted to, the globalized and digitized economy is of course changing the way in which we work and in which we learn. And it poses challenges on the skills needed to remain, for example, if we talk about Europe, to remain competitive with other regions in the world. And globalization, I think, and we should not forget about this, also takes place against the background of demographic aging and a shrinking workforce. If we talk about Europe, I think it's also the case in some industrialized Asian countries. And so, in order to keep our welfare up, we need not only to adapt to globalization, but we also need to have higher productivity, and we need to have more innovation. So all these factors, globalization, digitization, need for higher productivity, need for innovation, imply that the skills problems that exist in Europe, that they must be addressed. Yeah? And who talks about skills talks, of course, about training, about qualifications, and, of course, about vocational qualifications included, about VET systems that have to adapt. I think the reply to this question is, of course, a definitive yes. So just a few skills challenges I would like to share with you that Europe is facing. In terms of basic skills, literacy, numeracy, ICT basic skills, 68 million people in Europe have low basic skills. But the number of jobs that is demanding higher skills is increasing. And almost any job now, 90% of jobs, you need some digital skills. Then, in the area of ICT, there is a particular challenge because 40% of Europe's population has insufficient digital skills. And there is an estimation that by 2020, there will be a gap of 800,000 unfilled positions for digital technology experts across Europe. We also have skills mismatches, namely 30% of high qualified workers have jobs that only require medium to low skills. And all of this in a background, in a context where we are still having very high unemployment. 23.5 million people across Europe are unemployed, and nearly 5 million young people are unemployed, okay? And in some countries the situation is quite good, but in other countries, like Greece or Spain or Portugal, unemployment is really high. So against this background, of the skills challenges of globalization. The Commission is currently preparing an EU-wide skills agenda for Europe that is planned for May 2016. That is the indicative date that we have at this moment. And this skills agenda will call for a shared commitment, EU level, but also member states, because subsidiarity, meaning that education training is, of course, a competence power of the member states. Now, under the skills agenda, points of attention will be that there is a need for higher and more relevant skills. For example, better digital skills. And this has implications for vocational education and training. Secondly, there is also a need for a better visibility and a better use of available skills, including also skills of migrants. So we need more transparency. We need a better use also there of international qualifications, for example. And we need a better understanding in Europe of non-European qualifications. And in this context, we have already been working on some pilot projects between the EQF and New Zealand, Australia and Hong Kong. But there are, of course, many more countries in the world. There is also a need to have a better understanding of skills needs. There is a need for better skills intelligence, especially through more real-time labor market data, and also better information for VET providers on what skills should be offered. And in the context of the skills agenda, the Commission also intends to explore how, under the EQF, we can better address international and sectorial qualifications, and also how we can create, or we will explore at least this, possibilities to link qualification frameworks outside Europe with the EQF. Just to conclude, the conference of today and of tomorrow will shed light, hopefully, on different ways in which globalization is affecting VET. There are plenty of good speakers and there are plenty of interesting perspectives. And what should be the responses to these challenges? And interestingly, I think here is that it is not just Europe, but also the other parts of the world that will contribute to these questions. And I hope that the conclusions tomorrow will be rich and will have good policy relevance. And to finish, I wish you a very fruitful conference, interesting conference with inspiring presentations and good discussions. And we will meet during these 2 days. So enjoy the conference and...
Thanks a lot, Koen, bringing the Commission's perspective. And now I will give the floor for George Kostakis. George worked day and night for this event. I think is the right person to set the scene. So this is actually the topic he's going to address now.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm so happy to have you all here. I had been in contact with many of you. You were eager to come and contribute to the discussions. So I'm looking forward to those 2 days. What I want to do is I would like to say a few words why we are here, why a conference on globalization on VET, and what will be the focus of our conference within those 2 days. As our director rightly pointed out, there are new jobs and occupations emerging. Others become obsolete. And this is because of the globalized economy and the rapid technological developments. In such a global context, it is important for the holders of vocational qualifications to have the right skills, to have the right competencies to remain employable and to be competitive in the labor market. To make this happen, we need education and training to stay ahead of developments, or at least follow developments at a very close pace. These may sometimes become challenging because we see many new forms of VET provision and qualifications, as rightly pointed out, emerging. We see different players, different bodies entering the education and training landscape. CEDEFOP has observed that in the recent years there has been many initiatives at European, at international level related to VET standards and qualifications. And we want to better understand that landscape. We want to establish a knowledge basis on which we will base our future work. And this is why we have invited you here, over 100 people. As Lucas also said, more than 13 countries are here. But what I would like to add is that we have more than 20 people from European associations, federations, and international level, because we want together to discuss, share ideas, and find a way to develop VET for a globalized economy. Now, the focus of the conference. The focus for those 2 days, but as you very well understand, globalization is a huge topic. And the impact it has on education and training has many dimensions. We have decided to focus on 3 dimensions. The first one looks at the responsiveness of national systems and actually to see how they address those global and international trends. It looks at how countries broaden the national perspectives by integrating the international dimension when they upgrade their qualifications, their training programs and curricula. This is the first topic. The second topic we're looking at is to look at the added value, the opportunities that international sectoral qualifications bring to the labor market. We have seen an increasing number of international bodies, sectoral bodies, bodies outside the jurisdiction of national authorities, that they offer training, they award certificates, diplomas, qualifications, which are based on international standards, which are based on the specific needs of sectors. But since their number is increasing, and also since their use in the labor market is increasing, we are very interested to see what value do they bring to employers, to individuals, to national systems. This is the second topic. Now, the third topic for our discussions, we look at the actors and the conditions for a successful cooperation when renewing VET standards in order to keep a balance between the local needs and the global requirements. We will look at how national authorities work together with sectoral bodies and other international players. These are the 3 topics we will be addressing, and this is how we have organized our conference to evolve during those 2 days. Now I will, before closing, I will take you through the conference program. This morning we will have presentations that aim at stimulating your thinking, generating ideas that you will discuss in the afternoon workshops in smaller groups, in addressing the questions that you will find in the background paper. In your folders, you have also the list of the workshops that you have selected, 1, 2, or 3. Our keynote speaker, Mr. Patrice Guézou, will explain how the French Chamber of Industry and Commerce understands how do they perceive globalization and which are the challenges and opportunities it brings to our education and training systems. Tomorrow we will open up the discussion and see what happens in other parts of the world. We will try to identify similarities and differences and learn from other policies and practices. We will summarize the conference and close it before the lunch break tomorrow by bringing in the key messages from those 2 days in a panel discussion on how we can join forces to develop VET for a globalized economy. I would like to encourage you to share your views, to actively participate in the discussions, both in the plenary and in the small groups, in the workshops. Those of you who use Twitter and Facebook, you will see on the screen, we have created a hashtag #GlobalVetConf. You have also this slide in your dossier if you forget it later on. And I would like to invite you to share any interesting ideas that you listened to during those 2 days, to share your views, so that other people benefit from it outside those 100 people that we are here today. The conference is also on live streaming. The plenary session of today and tomorrow is live streamed. So hopefully we will get reactions and questions from other people that are watching us remotely. This is all I wanted to say. I wish you a very interesting conference. I'm looking forward to discussing with you, learn from your ideas, and I would like to thank you again for being here with us today and tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks, George. So we go to the next part, which is the keynote speech. And I give the floor to Patrice Guézou, who is Director of Competencies and Training in the French Chamber of Commerce and Industry. It's an honor to have you with us, and please share with us your views.
That's bad. Okay. Mr. Kaleja, Mr. Nandam, representative of the European Commission, ladies and gentlemen, and colleagues. I would like to thank you for inviting me today and giving me the opportunity to take part in this discussion about the relationships between globalization of products and exchanges and the challenges in providing people with skills throughout their lives. By way of introducing myself, I will just say a few words about the organization I work for. I work in the head office of the French network of chambers of commerce and industry, and I am in charge of running and coordinating career development activities, lifelong learning, apprenticeships, and higher education. The French Chambers of Commerce and Industry belong to Eurochambre, the network of European Chambers of Commerce, which is shown on the slide. Yes, thank you, Philippe. Lifelong learning and apprenticeships are major activities for European Chambers of Commerce. The key figures shown here demonstrate this. For the Chambers of Commerce and Industry in France, lifelong learning apprenticeships are activities governed by legislation, and are mandatory because of their fiscal resources they receive. A Chamber of Commerce and Industry gets up because business leaders in a particular area come together and decide they need one. Consequently, it is in the Chamber's DNA and permanently embedded in its work to act in a way that meets the needs of business owners. With regards to training and apprenticeships, the Chamber also provides training programs which must effectively meet economic concerns and the challenges of making people employable. To sum up, CCIs view themselves as essential players very much involved in facing the challenges of globalization and the impact of globalization on providing people with the professional skills they need. If at the end of this presentation you would like to find out more about CCIs, I will, of course, at your disposal. But also my colleague, Tom Roth-Skerve, here, who is here and who has helped me to prepare this speech. So thank you, Tom. So as an introduction to my talk, I would like to start off with a very simple observation. On a day-to-day basis, we all experience globalization differently. This does not mean that there are not objective facts attesting to the different forms of current globalization, forms that are having an impact on our countries, our businesses, and our qualifications. I will return to this later. However, we don't feel the force of them in the same way or with the same degree of urgency, and even less so, the different opportunities they offer. This means that we don't feel in the same way the changes that have already happened, ongoing changes or future changes that must be considered or implemented. As I start my presentation, I cannot overlook the fact that many fellow European citizens feel threatened by globalization. They feel that it is a threat to their work, and you can see it on just the figure about unemployment, a threat on their business, a threat to their safety, a threat to their lifestyle, and a threat to their environment. In Europe, many political movements are riding on such perceptions, and any event, such as the recent terrorist attacks, of course, any weakening in the economy or challenge to our social systems are used as an excuse to justify closing borders, economic protectionism, limiting exchanges of all kinds, including cultural and educational exchanges. We all come together today to talk about this subject because despite the risks and challenges, we genuinely recognize the globalization offers us more opportunities than dangers and greater safety and perpetual peace than war and impoverishment. However, if we want these convictions to be more widely shared beyond our own community, then as regards opinions in Europe, we must absolutely take into account this background of fearfulness, which is being exacerbated by the migrant crisis and extremely sensitivity of public opinion, and in particular of working people, employees and job seekers, coping with ever greater exchanges and ever fiercer competition. In a nutshell, and I just repeat what have said our director, we could say that now and in the future we have to be more pedagogues. In Athens, Socrates showed us the way for such a mission and action. Having shared these initial general observations, I would like to answer the question which presents itself to us using three distinct angles. Angle one, some activities which fall within the scope of marketing, finance, IT, communication technologies are being used at a global level and require the same types of skills anywhere across the globe. As a consequence, what qualification and accreditation system do we see emerging to respond to this? First angle. Second angle, whenever the internationalization of exchanges and the development of digital technology profoundly alter jobs and skills, in what way does this require qualification system to change and adapt? And angle three, what roles are the territories, regions, and population catchment areas able to play in meeting the challenges of business activities, employment, and qualifications against a background of increasing globalization differentiated according to industries, countries, and skills profiles? So, angle one, if you want. Globalization is visible and known to everyone in many sectors of economic activity. We have the same financial reporting standards, IFRS. We use the same marketing technique, Blue Ocean, for example. We operate the same IT systems, Microsoft, Apple. The same management system software program, SAP, PeopleSoft, Oracle. The same communication tools, Google, Twitter, Facebook. And we use the same management techniques, leadership, lean management, management control. And soon, we will be using the same online training systems, what we call learning management systems, such as Constant On Demand, cross-knowledge, YouTube, and so on. Our countries, our economies, and our cultures all need globalized skills. Our educational institutions and systems reacting to this demand for qualifications. From an educational perspective, many universities, business schools, and engineering institutes have positioned themselves in this market to build, invest in, and develop these specific globalized technical skills. By way of example, and without claiming to be exhaustive, of course, just because we are a witness of the development of business school by CCI, I would like to focus on the supranational European or global standards that have become widely established and adopted. These schools, business schools, recognize one another, they link up, and they set up partnerships based on accreditation such as, and you have here on the slide, AACSB, so it's an American standard, AMBA from United Kingdom, EQUIS from Europe, and based on a certification program called EFMB. So these certifications or accreditation provide schools with a means for recognition. They rank them against each other and enable training pathways to be established for students with as a result, dual diplomas being awarded more and more commonly. This accreditation system helps build reputation and brands and paves the way for exchanges between students from different countries, from different schools. These brands have value and are bought into by employers, students, and adults in continuing education for the same reason. Indeed, this is because these schools premise with a high level of quality to meet the concerns and demand of an elite workforce by offering globalized challenges and technologies. I will stop here my initial foray into our topic. The field of education and vocational training, as in other sectors of the economy, is increasingly being driven by supranational brands, which are taking precedence over national referencing systems, which were often already well established. I am thinking, of course, of the LMD system or ECTS system known to everyone in Europe. Also, institutional branding makes its mark. It does not deny national or European ranking on classification system. However, given the global competition between institutions, they use strategies equivalent to those used by major industrial and commercial brands with global reach. These institutions capitalize on their brand, even though when they develop MOOC, for example. Just for last information, the educational market is now estimated to be worth $2.5 billion, which make it the second leading private sector market after healthcare. This is growing privatization in this market, which shows no signs of slowing down. So that was my first angle. Angle 2, why not seeking the same level of uniformity and globalization, but under pressure from both greater internationalization and of exchanges and more intense competition? Many sectors producing goods and services have defined or are in the process of defining production standards and therefore skills which are European or global. By way of illustration, let's take the example of a company which is with a particularly visible international profile and which automatically creates human resource management challenges between countries. So we take this example of Ferrero Group, which produce Nutella, and I think you know Nutella, of course. The flow patterns on the diagram perfectly illustrate the process by which exchanges and the global division of work become internationalized. Quite obviously, for these types of international companies, it is important to be able to navigate a country's degrees classification system, to be able to trust the educational systems in the countries where they are based, and to be able to exert influence on them based on their expectations. If, as far as what industrialists demand, the educational system being used do not already have jointly designed diplomas or shared accreditation systems, such as ECVET, as you all know, of course, how can be a commitment to cooperate to enhance the company's performance and to ensure employability for people? I would like to share with you several convictions formed in particular at Veolia Environnement, where I worked before, through working with clients, both local authorities and industrialists in the Middle East. May I take some water? Thank you. So, first and foremost, yes, it is indeed easier to discuss and define the qualification standards you want to achieve when you have a comparable measurement scale. The tool developed by the European Union, the European Qualifications Framework, EQF, is very useful for this. As you know, its high common European reference levels are described in terms of learning outcomes, knowledge, skills, and competencies. Learners, graduates, providers, and employers can use these levels to understand how and compare qualifications awarded in different countries and by different education and training systems. Next, also, it is important to have a consensus on the level of skills and qualification to be achieved. No educational system is identical from one country to another. The worst solutions is to try and tack on a model, a course, or a system. On the contrary, it is important to co-design the system, diploma or training scheme. So here, on my opinion, is the most important thing is agreeing about the project development process. The path laid down by the European pilot project on sustainable professionalization ties in very well with this. As a reminder, this was a shared methodology for presenting and describing professional activities and quality criteria, aiming to achieve shared recognition of qualifications. This co-construction process is what will make it possible to adopt a qualification system over the long term to those involved in the educational sector as well as those in the economic sector. Finally, and this is not the easiest thing, it is important that all those involved respect one another and want to work together. What I mean by this is what is really needed is for industrialists, for companies to show discernment and are able to forecast their production methods. It is always a tricky exercise. They need to foresee the sort of profile they will and outline the skill required for the job and for a career in that field. As for the educational system, it must listen to what the companies need and design its courses accordingly. Such cooperation between the academic world and the business world is developing, but we still have a long way to go before we can be satisfied. So, as we conclude this second angle, it looks like easier if we have established by educational, it is made, so the mobility for people in Europe and across the world is made easier by educational system being able to have a dialogue by being clear about the levels of diploma, certification, and skills, by genuine and constructive cooperation between companies and those involved in education, and by drawing a genuine expertise for the project development process, and I am very keen on this, and joint efforts. So it's three conditions I think really important to success this angle 2. So now let's go to this angle 3. Lastly, I would like to explore with you a third and final angle for closing the gap between globalization and educational systems. If all employment categories are or will be affected by development in technologies and international exchanges, nevertheless, many business sectors and many fellow citizens are feeling the changes in the labor market without thinking about geographic mobility or having the skills to be able to change jobs. You have here just the percentage of mobility in Europe. You can see that it's really low. We have a lot of effort to do if you want to develop mobility in Europe. We know this aspect of globalization presents many challenges and sends a few shivers down the spine. Although everyone foresees that digital technology is likely to produce exceptional increases in productivity, everyone also seems to agree that this will cut the number of jobs worldwide. A widely published study by Carl Benedict Frey and Michael Osborne from September 2013 called The Future of Employment, How Susceptible Are Jobs to Computerization, started that 47% of employment is at risk of disappearing in its current form. And by 2035, 702 jobs carried out today will be done by machines. If we go further, the theory of the process of creative destruction, as proposed by Joseph Schumpeter at the beginning of the 20th century, applied to the repercussions of digital technology on businesses and jobs, prophesies the virtual disappearance of the middle classes, which we know were the basis for growth and democracy in our European societies during the second half of the 20th century. I am not showing you here the most glorious and conquering aspect of globalization. Rather, it's the aspect evoked where there is unemployment. desindustrialization, and a workforce enabled to face the challenges presented by the new production patterns. So, faced with this form of globalization, how can the educational system, taken its wider sense, possibly respond? This is not the list of all the challenges already mentioned before. Once again, I will give you 3 approaches for reflection, and only for reflection, of course. Approach 1, the answer does not necessarily lie at the broadest level, the state, but much closer to population catchment areas, cities, territories, or regions. Whereas earlier on where we were calling for co-production, now we are calling for cooperation and dialogue between all local stakeholders. Let's use a concrete example. A textile factory is shut down in an area of employment in the north of France because production is relocated to Asia or the Maghreb region. It's a precise example. For those made redundant, the solution no longer lies with the factory, nor most of the time in the same business sector. Then it is important that political bodies, social partners, and economic players, in addition to citizens and organizations, all work together and come up with new plans and new prospects for the area. Clearly, the educational system will have a central role to play in making plans, the changes envisaged a reality. However, as mentioned previously, the educational system must be flexible to meet the challenges of the area and those involved. If the system for accrediting and upgrading national courses are flexible and deal with the challenges, then let us them. However, if this is not the case, the area can itself become the place to offer accreditation and support for professional development. Approach 2. Obviously, rather than letting things happen, it is better to make them happen, of course. The idea of lifelong learning takes on a deeper meaning. It means constantly thinking about your employability and that of your employees, as well as of the job seekers you deal with. Globalization and digitalization are making our skills obsolete with increasing rapidity. So we must wage a daily battle against skills obsolescence and form of illiteracy and fight to develop cross-disciplinary skills transferable from a job to another, from one sector to another, and to accredit any skills which could be recognized and which could give a person their best opportunities in their career. We must fight for all forms of recognition which value an individual's range of skills. We must continually learn to maximize the chance of being able to bounce back. I'm sure this principle does not go against what we believe here as skills developers. We know just how difficult it is to take on the role of cultivating various skills. And now the approach 3. However, learning and pursuing lifelong vocational training must be seen as a constructed response and not as some natural, spontaneous impulse. It is both a social and psychological construct. Therefore, drawing on the works of Amartya Sen, it seems to me that the cleverest way to lessen and even prepare for the shocks of globalizations on area and on individuals is to increase the ways in which we facilitate transition, exploration, and learning. Many sociologists and psychologists call this creation of enabling environments. Planners call this the development of resilient territories. So, enabling environments, resilient territories. Against this backdrop, innovation, training, and production cohabit the same territory. The educational system is openly perceived as an aggregator for the individual's various forms of learning. At European level, with the EGVET system, can already integrate these different forms of skills. So it is not a question of tools or method. Here, the issue is not so much formal recognition of knowledge and skills, but increasing virtuous territorial ecosystem, which could be said to put right globalization. The territorial ecosystem then becomes both the guarantor and the resource to develop new activities, new forms of exchange, new types of employment, and new qualifications. So here you have the example of a place you know, of course, in France, that's the place of Nice, which tried to develop what we call resilient territories and to develop that kind of group, fertilization group between activities, training systems, and innovation structure. To conclude, as a collective challenge, I would like to share the following quote with you. It's from Jack Welch, former CEO from General Electric. If the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of change on the inside, the end is near. If we apply, so you have to think that we are a community here. We are a community, so you have to think that we are something like inside, okay? If we apply this quote to the education and lifelong training sector, it means that traditional educational system, university, business school, engineering institutes, specialist colleges, and training organizations must quickly become more flexible if we want to avoid seeing new inputs with a one-click sweep away the historic infrastructure and technostructure in the field of education and training. Please know that I take this sentence very seriously. Every day, it prompts me to speed up the process by which we are transforming the training our CCIs provide. So is this meant for me and my organization before being a collective challenge for us all? Thank you for your attention and patience.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Guézou. It was a very comprehensive and inspiring presentation. I think it was full of ideas, and actually it is the perfect appetizer for the discussions that will follow in the forthcoming sessions. But I have the feeling that actually we have an increasing rate of need for a coffee in the room. So before having a half an hour break, I have to inform you that before having the very well-deserved coffee, you have to have a family photo. So a photographer will be waiting for us outside, and at 11:30 we'll be back to continue with the next session. Thanks a lot.
So welcome everyone. I hope you enjoyed your coffee break. and we all look good in the photo that was taken. I've already seen some lively discussions taking place during the coffee break, and I'm happy to see that. What we will do now is we will have presentations from 3 different actors. We'll have a national authority, we will have a sectoral organization, we have an international company. We will see what they do, how do they face the challenge of globalization in relation to education and training, and we will have a discussion following their presentations. I think this is the time where we can also engage with you. You have heard a lot of ideas. I'm sure you want to express yours. So we will have, before the coffee break, before the lunch break, the chance to discuss and exchange between you and the speakers. This session will be moderated by Steven Liebrecht. Steven Liebrecht is a senior consultant with Prospects, which is a Brussels consultancy company specialized in stakeholder engagement. He has a 15 years experience in the design and facilitation of participatory group processes on societal challenges such as climate change, energy, food and nutrition, education and training. He's been using the same kind of methods to develop strategies or support innovation with the private sector. And he also has a PhD in physics, and he's an entrepreneur. So as an entrepreneur, he understands very well the issues we're discussing here and which are the challenges that we need to address. Stephen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, George, for this very nice, very kind introduction. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So this session is about meeting the challenge of globalization in FED. Well, let's say a few words on how we're going to structure this session. This session is basically structured around 3 different presentations. George has already explained that basically we will have 3 entirely different perspectives on the matter. So one perspective is about the multinational organizations in this. Another perspective is the sector view. And we have a 3rd presentation, which is about a qualification framework. So that links to the national perspective, if you like. 3 presentations means we're going to have 3 different distinct blocks for this session. And for each of the blocks, we will first have the presentation. Then there will be time, a couple of minutes, for questions and answers, but I prefer these questions and answers to be questions for clarification. So if there's something not entirely clear on the presentation, please ask so, but not to initiate a debate. Because for that we have a special surprise, if you like, an exercise that we would like to do with you after the presentation, and that will then be the initiation of the debate, if you like. And then, when it's time to move on to the next session, to the next presentation, we will do so. Right? So let's see. I have a couple of guidelines for the presenters. After they have a presentation of 15 minutes, after 10 minutes, I will show them a sign that 5 minutes are left, and then later on that they still have 2 minutes. This is by no way to be considered any value judgment from my part on their presentation. No, it's just to help timekeeping. That's all. It's very neutral. Okay? And which brings me probably to the first presentation, which is about the international organization. And this presentation will be delivered by Mr. Piotr Pluta. He is Director of Corporate Affairs in Europe, Middle East and Africa at Cisco. So that's very clearly a multinational organization. He leads the Department of Corporate Affairs, so he has a broad responsibility for Cisco corporate social responsibility programs. Yeah? So this framework within Cisco includes governance and ethics, supply chain, social and environmental corporate impact. It also includes education, healthcare, economy development. So these are key areas for Cisco corporate social responsibility impact in Europe and the Middle East, Africa and Russia. So he has had several functions within Cisco, and prior to that, prior to joining Cisco, he has had management roles in pharmaceutical industry, fast-moving consumer goods, automotive, and no high-tech. So he has really a very broad view on several sectors. His background might come as a surprise. In fact, he is a medical doctor. He has the Polish nationality, but is living in Switzerland. Right? He also is a Harvard alumnus and has attended courses at Stanford University. So, Mr. Piotr Pluta, the floor is yours. You have 15 minutes.
Thank you. Welcome after the coffee break. This is the best, probably the best moment to do a presentation. Everybody is energized, not too late. Coffee was very nice, nice weather. And there have been some discussions about digital transformation already in the morning. And as in my current role and as a company, we are really in the center of that. You know, so all the internet infrastructure which enables you to connect here and goes through the big networks to the data centers, this is our core business. And I wanted to share with you a little bit of perspective of what does it mean for the world today. So we see that the digital experience is almost everywhere. It's in the city, it's in the country level, it's in digital companies, it's in the digital experience of citizens. It touches everybody and everything. And what we also see from our perspective in the industry, that internet is evolving very fast. So we may sometimes think it's already in the phase where it's already done, but from the industry perspective, it's not. We have went through the connectivity era where everything was started to be connected. Then the internet has impacted economy, created the networked economy. Today, we have this immersive experience with the social media, mobility, cloud services, and video. And we see that we are just in the front of the next wave of adoption, which is, we call it Internet of Everything, where there will be much more of expansion of connectivity. Let me share with you what does it mean and how we can look at that. So if we look at the people, we could say about 39% of the population is connected today. We have about 13 billion connected things in the world. About 80% of technology, of processes in business are powered by digital technology. And we are now able in 1 year to generate so much data as the humankind all before, or 5,000 years. And these four components we include in the concept of Internet of Everything, where people, process, data, and things will be connected together and we can generate value from this complex system. Now, the interesting thing is that if we would look at the devices which are connected today to the Internet and which can benefit from the connectivity, the estimate is that only 1% is connected today. Right? So we can easily think, okay, we are already in a digital era, everything is done. If we think about this from the industry perspective, it's 1%, so we have 99% to go. Now think about what does it mean for skills demand and for competencies and for jobs in the future. Just to visualize this a little bit, we today already can talk about smart homes. Maybe some of you already have some of these solutions implemented. Healthcare is using the digital data and digital systems in a big way. The customer experience is impacted by video conferencing and other media which can enable people to talk in groups without barriers, without borders. This is today. If you look a bit into the future, we will be facing things like self-refilled bottles in medical, which will connect to the system. You might have noticed that about 3 or 4 weeks ago, there was an FDA approval for digital pill, which means the digital component which will be embedded in pharmaceuticals, which we can swallow, and then this can send information to the system if the patient has really taken properly in the right time. We may think it's a funny thing or it's a toy, but if you connect this with the fact that 40% of inefficient treatments are related with the inappropriate usage of pills, this can really revolutionize the healthcare. Smart cards, checking out from the retailing may not necessarily even require any efforts. This will be automated. Looking in other sectors like agriculture, the harvest alerts and automation of intelligence about what's happening in a vast territories of agriculture and how this can optimize the process and help the workers there to be more productive. This is also what will happen very soon. So technology market transitions are on the way, and they are converging to a digitally run world. The Internet of Things, which I mentioned, the devices which will benefit from connectivity, the big data and analytics. We have a lot of data. I'm not sure we are really using this properly so far. Are we translating this into intelligence, taking decisions? It's probably still in front of us to capture this better. The mobility, social collaboration, cloud, and of course, very important aspect of that, which is security. We know that this Internet of Everything world will not happen until we really are able to design and implement appropriate security systems. This all will generate a lot of demand for new skills, new competencies, and new jobs. I just use my own small experience with that. Some of you who are from UK or or have been in Cambridge University, this is a picture from one of the colleges, beautiful ones, with the pillows. I was there as a visitor with my son, who is 16, and he wants to have a look about what potentially education may look like for him. And the guides told us the story that these pillows are so nice that they have a problem with the pillows because they are disappearing. So they had to, a few years ago, appoint a security guard who was taking care about that. But he said, you know what, last year this has changed. The security guard is gone. I said, what has happened? Now, these pillows have sensors inside, and they are connected to the system, so we know exactly where they are. And if somebody is taking it, right? Some students have made a company which has made this system available, and this is a new business, new jobs. It's happening. Now, what it means in a broader scale, we have, as a company which is inside of this, and we see this as our potential business and our responsibility, we see that the sectors which will benefit from this digital transformation is mainly manufacturing and energy. This will be probably the first adopter, where the automation and better control can have huge impact on economy, on jobs, but retail and trade, it's also quite important. Information services, finance and insurance, healthcare, just to name those which will be probably the first adopters of this transformation. And what will happen? The demand for digital skills there will be growing very fast. It's already there. We have heard this morning about 800,000 jobs in European Union which are already affected by the lack of proper level of digital skills. On the other hand, we have youth unemployment, right? It's a paradox. On one hand, the industry is ready, but there is not enough competence. Is there a role for VET in this? I believe so. As mentioned by Stephen, I lead the part of the corporate social responsibility in Cisco, and we have developed a program where we share our core competence with public education to enable teachers and institutions to be on track with what is going on in the industry. And I know it's not easy because we have two different speeds, right? We go very fast, public education is not that fast, so we have to also know how we can help teachers and how we can help schools, how we can help retraining organizations to use this know-how and translate this into teaching and learning and certifications. And we look at these two different types of skills, of technical and what we call 21st century, with critical thinking, collaboration, communication, creativity, and problem solving. Since 18 years, we have been running our Cisco Networking Academy program, which is a program offered to public education for free. But it was focused on information technology. So you can see here the number of 1 million students. This is the number of students which uses this program. And it's across the globe, everywhere, with a lot of vocational education institutions as well. Helping 20,000 instructors with their professional development to make sure that they are up to date with what is happening in the industry. And about 9,000 academies. These are the institutions which have adopted the program to use for education of students or employees or retraining centers of the governments. But we already, because as an industry, we cannot stand still. We have to move forward. We have to think about what will happen in 3 to 5 years from now, so we don't leave teachers with something which is obsolete, right, when they are, after 3 or 5 years, continuing to use the program. That's why we are now working on the other aspects of IT adoption in process control engineering, in energy management, in industrial automation, and in transportation, all connected with the security. To give you some examples, in European Union, there is about 3,000 institutions which use the program. I have listed here just samples of those which are the biggest ones. You can see some from Denmark, Germany, Spain, France, just to name a few. What we have also tried to do is to align better with the governments, because the governments are playing quite an important role in helping vocational education or the retraining. So these are the places where we have signed a memorandum of understanding with either a country like France or Hungary, or with the local governments in Spain, Germany, or Scotland, to have the closer connection between industry and public education or government efforts to improve skills development in their countries or regions. This is quite a complex slide showing, well, what does the program cover? So what our courses are about. You can see here a lot about technical skills with focus on our core competence, which is networking engineering. But looking into these trends, we have to go outside of that. That's why you can see at the bottom also the career skills and employment skills, related skills, embedded in the courses. And we have talked about certifications. We have started the program with the very clear focus. There were industry standard certifications which our customers and our partners value, and they hire these people. That's why we said, why don't we develop a program which helps public education to align with these industry certifications, and teachers to have access to the content and have access to the learning methods which will help them to be successful working with their students to be ready for these jobs. And I think I wanted to share this with this audience because I believe there is an opportunity for better cooperation between industry and education in public and training overall. This is an example of the program which works in this direction with 1 million students globally joining this program every year. So it's quite a big scale already. And as an innovative company, we also use our innovation in the teaching and learning. So not only the content is important, it's also the matter of using the simulation-based learning, for instance. We have a simulator engine which is enabled to be used by teachers for free, so they can simulate environments and work with students on the scenarios. Gaming and the social media. There are some other important elements, like mobile access to the system. The students are now new, that they really want to use the tools which they use in their private life. Like flexible pedagogy, teachers have to be able to adjust the content. They don't want just a book, they want the content which they can insert their own materials or take out something which is not important for them. So the program includes learning management system, which is delivered for free for public education. and the communication preferences or organizing the classes and groups and using Web 2.0 services. I would like to conclude with the public and private partnerships. Our program has been built on this concept. We see our role as an industry to share with the public education and to enable the progress, especially if in what I have shared with you at the very beginning. Digital world is really accelerating, and there is a growing demand for competencies and skills. Thank you very much.
Piotr, you surprised me by really staying within the time constraints, which general is quite a challenge. So I was ready there to indicate that time was up, but he was just finishing. So congratulations. As explained before, first I would like to do is just open the floor for a couple, not too many, but a couple of questions for clarification. So not to really initiate a debate. We have this surprise. So are there any questions? Are the things that you heard that you say, this needs a bit of clarification, I quite don't understand was what mentioned there? Any question like this? Yes, please. Just briefly state who you are and affiliation, but not giving a full bio, please.
It works? Yes.
Yes.
Mario Spadafora, Finance and Banking Association, Italy. We are mainly involved in European projects. One of the different projects mainly are focused on the banking financial sector, of course, but one now we won is about information security for students, because we have so many things, possibilities, but we have to think what is right, but also what is wrong. Then why not, because we are here, not to think also how to educate the people, the young people, in information technology. Thank you.
Okay, so perhaps short response from your side.
Well, absolutely. This is a very important topic. Let me maybe explain two things. Digital literacy, it's about how do we consume technology. And this is very important. I think Europe has to be really good in this. And I agree with you that there is definitely a role of the industry to help with educating us here, as well as students, as children. You know, how should they benefit from digital products, let's say, in a secure way as consumers. And it is important, we also want to play the role there. We have one specific course which is called Get Connected, which is exactly enabling this. It's a digital literacy course explaining the security aspects and so on. We also believe that industry has to play on its biggest strength. Our biggest strength is the industrial application of technology and creation of new technology solutions. That's why some of our courses are more focused on professionals which will be developing systems and which will be moving digital solutions to production, not on the consumer side. I think it is more difficult, and it's also we have to specialize, right? We cannot do everything. I think there are probably other companies which can do better than we, this part of digital literacy, but we want to be in this there. So our program is much more focused on this industrial application, the creation of systems, and enabling economy to thrive. But I fully agree with you. The consumer side has to be absolutely in the same time addressed so that everybody knows how to benefit and how to benefit in a secure way from what is available.
Okay, thank you so much. Good, well, if there are no other questions, I suggest, oh sorry, I missed you, sis.
Mariola Szymańska-Koszczyc. I'm representing the Warsaw Institute of Banking and also the European and Financial Services Training Association today. I have a specific question to you. What would be your recommendation in order not to make a certification a one-time event? That is, you go through the training, you pass the exam, you get the certificate, and then very often the life cycle of a certification is very short, and we would like it to be for the long life learning. So from your perspective, what is the recommendation?
Perhaps a short answer.
So this is already the reality in digital industry. We have to go very fast. Our certifications are changing more or less about every 18 months. So every 18 months, there is a demand to change the course and also to recertify the professionals. My recommendation, follow this speed, you know. We have to probably adjust to this and acknowledge that this is happening.
But it probably should adjust in the speed of the developments within that particular sector.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
within IT, it's extremely fast, we all know. Okay, cool. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's move to the next part. And what we're going to do is a kind of a voting procedure, yeah? A voting exercise. If it's voting, it means there needs to be a voting procedure and there needs to be a question to vote on, right? Let's first talk about the procedure. Within your handouts, you will find two cards, a pink one and a green one. Can you all take these cards, please? You have the cards? They should be within your package that you received. Okay? Good. Excellent. You ready? Now, could you help me, George, and show the... Yes, that's it. Okay. So, well, we heard an example of Cisco, which basically is about how industry can play a role in VET. Right? Now, the question we would like to ask you is, do you consider that VET should be based considerably more than it is now the case, not slightly more. Let's do this a little bit more provocative, right? So, should VET use industry-based training considerably more than today? If you think the answer is yes, you're going to show the green card. If you believe the answer is no, and don't tell me it is somewhere in between, it's either green or red. If your answer is no, you use the red card. Right? Okay. Can we do the voting, please? No, this is a very simple voting. Okay. So please use the microphone. So the question is not clear. Let me ask then Piotr perhaps to clarify the question. Yes.
Sorry to intervene on this, but the question, if it is put like this, could also be understood: should VET use more work-based learning than today? But you probably mean, should VET use more industry-based standards in training more than today?
Okay.
Probably, right?
How would you put the emphasis?
This definitely could be both. This could be standard. This could be.
Okay. You can choose. It's your session, so you can choose one of the two.
Let's say standards.
I would say standards.
Standards. Okay. Does that help? Okay. So it's industry-based standards. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Question clear now. So let's vote. Can I please see the red or green cards? Don't show me both, and you should all be voting. Green, 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 green. We have a not pink. Okay. They want to take a picture. Can we do it again, please? Okay. I must say, I had in mind to ask the honorable presenters to help me in assessing whether it would be 50-50 or slightly a majority in one or the other direction. but I think we all agree it's a quite clear signal here. Let's see, why did you show a green card? I would first like to see some people explaining why they chose green. Did you have green? Did you have green? Okay, please, very shortly.
Mr. Boomgast from Flanders, Belgium.
Yes.
So if we take a picture of the green cards, we have to take another text on the screen with standards.
Okay, no,
That's
fully
the
agree.
condition.
That will be taken care of.
Yeah.
No problem with that. But my question was, why did you go for green?
Just because of the standards, because
Okay.
there's difference between programs and standards.
Okay.
Standards, we can agree on it, and we need the sector because they have inside information.
Okay.
But it should be flexible to organize, certainly in education. I'm not talking
Right.
about vocational training, but in education, to have our own programs respecting the standards.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Who had another reason to choose green? Did you all go for the same reason? You had? Okay, explain us, please. Yes, push the green button. Yes, that's the one.
Okay. Because I think that we should encourage the debate and the communication between education and industry much more. And this, I think, a discussion about standards being used by education and industry is an example of how you can do this. So that's why I voted for the
Is
green
this
card.
linked to the relevance then of the training?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful, great. There were a couple of red cards, though. I remember you had a red card and you had a red card, right? Let's first go to you. Why have you a different position on this? The green button, please. Yes, that's the
Okay. I think the question is too generic, yes. To be honest, yes. The whole question is too generic. Of course, nobody can say anything against industrial standards. That is always fine, yes. But what are these industrial standards can be very different, yes.
Right.
So that was the reason that I said no, because in a general I wouldn't accept it, because I know the debate between vendors of certificates and industry-driven certificates and governments having another opinion. I followed these discussions some years ago, and I'm not convinced that every vendor offered qualification is the right way. So I was resistant, yes.
Exactly. Okay, but for a very good reason. It's too generic for you. Okay, and then you had a different reason, maybe, or was it for the same reason?
Yeah, no, it's what Jared said. I think I have the same idea, but there's something else, because I think that if you just look at the way it's put down, the connection between the world of work and VET, it's already there. But if you look at if it's connected on a worldwide level, that's lacking. So if I would look for the Netherlands, look at it on a national level, I would say, okay, this is already the case, but is the national industry-based standards connected to the world level? I would say, yes, that this could be considerable more. So that's why I say it's red, because I don't agree exactly with the with the question.
The formulation is okay. Which is interesting, because you're bringing basically the argument of globalization in the sense that in particular countries it might already be quite advanced, but if we take this from a global point of view, it's certainly not the case. Okay. Anybody else wants to share his or her position on this and the argument, please?
I agree with that the colleague from Netherlands said that there are some countries, for example also Germany, where industry is strongly involved in WIT programs and so on. But my question is why you focus on industry? We are living more and more in societies where the services are dominating the economy. Why only focusing on industry? This is my question. And secondly, this question is really quite general, because there are strong differences between countries. In Greece, for example, this is a huge necessity to strengthen the role of industry and enterprises in general in VET. Meanwhile, in Germany, for example, not, or in the Netherlands, neither. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Well, just to clarify, obviously the question was related to the presentation. We all know that the topic is extremely complex, has different angles, and that we would never be able to pinpoint it in a specific direction without neglecting other aspects. We certainly do so. Okay, a final question there, or a final position. Could you first say who you are?
No,
and then your color?
I'm from France, Brigitte Bouquet. I only have a question. What will be the use of the answers? It's very...
Of these?
yes, because it's very interesting. So yes, I agree. But what will be the use of the answers of such unprecise questions? Thank you.
I can put you at ease. This is very simply to initiate this debate, to have you interacting, to provoke even this kind of reactions. Okay, good. So, perhaps the final.
I had no answer. I'm sorry. Is it only to talk together and to make a kind of team building? Was that the answer, or will it be used in an official paper, which will be the official position of the outcomes of the conference? Thank you for a precise answer.
I can put you at ease. This is not the type of approach you could use to you can be put at ease. By the way, everything that is happening here can be stated once you enter this door. You basically enter safe, right? So you should not care too much about I have to represent this or this, and I have to be extremely careful about what I'm using. No, we just want to use your brains as human beings, your experience, your expertise on this matter to feed the discussion. That's all. So there is certainly no preparation or any formal things being prepared. It is, though, interesting to then ask the question back to, in this case, the presenter, to see, were you surprised by the outcome of this?
Very positively surprised. I thought there will be 5 or 6 reds, but there were only 2.
Okay.
No, and I wanted to make a comment on the comment from Netherlands and from Germany. These are the countries where the adoption of industry programs is very, very strong. I talk about my own experience with our program. Netherlands, 100% of vocational schools in Netherlands which have IT trainings, they are our partners, which is the exception. And the reason is very simple, because it works. It gives the right skills to people, right? It's a very pragmatic approach. But diversity is there. There are places in Europe where it is not like that. And I hope that at least this kind of discussion may help those of you which are from the places which can leverage more of industry programs. It's a welcome. So thank you very much. Thank you for your feedback. And I think this can be probably much more useful in some places, and in some places it will be just a confirmation that this is the right thing to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Piotr. So I think it's time we moved on to the next block, so the second presentation. And the second presentation will be delivered by Maria Luisa Coutinho. She's a full professor, mechanical engineering at the Instituto Superior Técnico, Portugal. And she's also a visiting professor at the Cranfield University School of Industrial Sciences in the UK. But she's here basically to present the European Welding Federation. And if you look at her, so that's the hat she's wearing in this conference, but if you would take a look at what she's been doing over the last years, she basically has participated in more than 100 national and international research and training projects. She has published more than 200 books and papers on the topic, so she can really be considered a specialist in the area. She has also been involved as an entrepreneur in several startup companies, and she will be delivering a presentation on international harmonization of qualifications in the welding sector. Mrs. Coutinho, the floor is yours.
So, good morning, everybody. I think it's a pleasure to be here in Thessaloniki again. It's actually already good afternoon. But, oh, thank you very much. I went to fetch mine. Now, I have a bit of a challenge, don't I? Because I'm going to talk about welding and joining and following a presentation on digital technology. Yeah, so in a way, so you had a presentation about, like start knocking everything around. A presentation on a very advanced sector, and now if we go joining and welding are more traditional sectors. But you know, the thing is that none of the tools you use to get in the IT world, like mobile phones, computers, and so on, would operate without welding. Your mobile phone has a couple of thousands of welds, yeah? And the other thing is actually that my former speaker said that manufacturing is one of the one that is going to more quick get into the implementation of the Internet of Everything. We are actually already working on that. It's welding and joining, as you know, is a very important technology in the manufacturing sector, and a difficult one as well, yeah, to control. So it's a challenge to integrate all of it in the digital world and have it properly controlled. So I wonder if this is work. Yeah, it does. Okay, so what is welding? Yeah, do you like one of that? One of that? Can be one for you. Oh, see? More than 2,000 welds. And last but not least, you know, you can build one of those if you want for you. None of these constructions will be possible without welding and joining. And it can go wrong. Some of the examples of wrong welds, you know, problems of failures are quite old. This one, it's from the Second World War. But this one is much recent, and quite a few people died in an accident as it was due to a welding failure. So unfortunately, though we know a lot about welding, we still have cases where safety is not actually assured as it should be. So that's what makes it a challenge profession, and that's why we need qualified and certified personnel to perform it at all levels, as I'm going to tell you about. And welding, as I said, is a technology that is quite relevant in the manufacturing world, and we actually, in Europe, we have around more than 1.25 million people working in welding and welding-related technologies. And it's a sector where there are plenty of jobs and not enough people qualified to fill these jobs. So that's one of the reasons why the European Welding Federation has an important role to play. It has actually been created in 1992 by all the welding institutes or welding associations from the countries that were in those days in the European community, with the aim of updating harmonization of harmonizing training and qualification in the field for professionals in the field of welding technology. So I hope this works. It does. So I will detail a bit what was in that movie, but our mission, to start with, is to provide world-class, European-focused, value-added products and support service to its members in their community and their communities in the field of joining, welding, cutting, and related technologies on an international basis. So we work our activities in the areas, naturally, of training, qualification and certification of personnel, certification of companies, collaboration projects, technical information, and technical products in the field of welding and joining. Our members, I suppose that many of the countries here are our members, since we are in Europe, 31 European countries, and 16 non-European countries. So India, New Zealand, Australia, you are all our members. Your welding institutes are members of IW, and so through the collaboration with the International Institute of Welding, they use this system as well. So a total of 47 countries. And this started already in 1992, so it has more than 20 years. This gives you a bit of an example of the scope of what we do. So we have on the, I don't know if I have a pointer, do I? Yeah, maybe. maybe I have a point. Yeah, so this bit here is actually the welding professions, which are run in cooperation with the International Institute of Welding. And in Europe, we have quite a few more qualifications that are offered in the market and are mostly linked with European standards. And all of this is based on guidelines which are, and documents for the quality assurance system, which are revised every 2 years. So this is the look of our guidelines, the cover of our guidelines, the number of diplomas that are awarded around the world. But I think this is more interesting for you. The way it works, how do we make a system actually work in the whole of the world? Yeah, and the professions that have our diplomas are employed. The mobility is 100%. So any person with an EWF diploma or an IW diploma can get a job in any country from Africa to, our members in Africa. We have members in Africa as well, Europe, United States, and so on. So because it's valid everywhere and it's recognized everywhere. So the way it is done is that we have the system is based on training guidelines which define the access conditions, the training course, the number of the subjects and the times for theoretical and practical learning, and then an examination which is harmonized and use quite a lot of IT to deliver this examination. It's the same all around the world, based on a database of questions. And then after completion of the examination exercise, the trainee gets a diploma, and with the diploma he gets a first certificate. So you were discussing the standards, the use of standards in vocational training. That's certainly what we do. In welding, there's a lot of standardization in CEN, in the European and the international level, so in EN and ISO standards. And so our system is actually based on EN and ISO standards. And for the trainees that finish the course with success, they get a diploma, which is valid for life, and the certificate, which needs to be renewed every 2 years. So to make this work, we have a quality system. It's a quite comprehensive quality system, where the most important document is the rules for the implementation of the EWF guidelines for education, examination, and qualification of welding personnel. They, of course, follow the ISO 17024 standard on conformity assessment. And also we have quite a few, 20-something operating procedures to indicate how to perform some of the tasks that are needed to have this quality assurance properly implemented. Yeah, so, and the way it runs actually the quality assurance system is that in each of our member countries, our member nominates an organization that is recognized as an authorized body for implementing the international training and qualification system for welding personnel in their country. And then this organization is the one that actually runs the system in the country by recognizing authorized training bodies, so schools. So the school, and there are, the schools need to follow also the quality assurance procedures that have been developed in the system for them. So I have the EWF member. I'll give you some examples. The EWF member nominates the ANB. The ANB is audited by the EWF assessors. And quite often, most of the ANBs are accredited by the national authorities as well. And then the ANBs authorize the training bodies to perform the courses, the international-European courses. And these are national vocational training schools, private vocational training schools. Some examples, so from Germany, Czech Republic, and Portugal. Sorry, I think it was a bit too, you can see who is the member, who is the ANB, and some examples of ATBs. So we have one ANB per country, so 47, approximately 47. And we have around more than 600 training schools, ATBs. The system is based, so the audits are based on the team of assessors, an international team of assessors who is trained. One of the OPs, the operating procedures, explains how to train the assessors, and 16 peer assessors from different countries. Now, to give you a bit of an idea of how this works, so once a country nominates an ANB, the ANB asks for a preliminary authorization to run this system. And then this is a procedure that is based on documents. So the ANB provides a set of documents that is properly defined to us, the EWF, we manage the system, so to EWF. At EWF, our team analyzes documents, and if everything is okay, this ANB gets preliminary authorization. Once it gets preliminary authorization, here, grant of preliminary authorization after the document review. Then, when this is done, this ANB can start authorizing ATBs and start the courses. It's desirable that it does. And then, before awarding the first diplomas, there is an on-site assessment by the team of assessors of EWF. And then it is approved by the body inside EWF, and then the preliminary authorization is transferred into full status authorization. Yeah, and from then onward, then there will be re-audits mandatory every 5 years, and it can be one in the middle if the organization is not accredited by the national accreditation body. If it is accredited, there's no need for the intermediate assessment. So we actually have a bit of, George has asked me to mention about the cooperation with national authorities. I know that many of the countries that are our members have a collaboration with the national authorities, and where the national qualifications framework refer to this system as a way to achieve a given level in the countries. And I know, for instance, the Nordic countries, Denmark, Finland, Sweden, I think there are representatives here from those countries. They are very well advanced and have implemented the system in all of their welding training schools. In Portugal, we as well, ISQ is our member in Portugal, and ISQ has worked in collaboration with ANCAP, our national qualification authority, and so in the national directory of qualifications for welding, this international system, European international system, is referred as a way to achieve certain levels in the national qualification framework. So, to ensure that all EWF and IW certificates and diplomas have the same meaning and value wherever in the world they are issued, the EWF IW training qualification certification system is underpinned by a rigorous quality assurance regime. This is in compliance with 17024, as I said, the conformity assessment standard. The equivalent to the certification bodies defined in the ISO standard, it's our ANBs. So as well, EWF and IW authorization, many of these ANBs have national accreditation as well. So we have, as a conclusion, 20 years of experience in international qualification of personnel for the manufacturing industries. We run a harmonized qualification system from project management, so the top level is actually the engineers, to the workshop level for the welders. Harmonized qualification system is used in 47 countries, one more now. Every year there are more countries coming in, actually. This harmonized system is referred in the SEN and ISO standards that the industry uses, and success is driven by the recognition of quality by the stakeholders, so not only the professions, but also the employers. So the system is based majorly in training guidelines, which are being revised to define learning outcomes, learning units, credits allocated. We finally have a project approved where we are doing this work. And the second big bulk is the quality assurance system, which is based on rules for accreditation bodies, rules for training bodies, training of assessors, and so on. So this experience is actually being benchmarked to other professions, and I thank you very much for your attention. And I am on time. Yeah.
Perfect. So that's already 2 speakers on the row that really respect the timing. By the way, can I also ask your hands for the first speaker? We forgot that, right? So, thank you, Gilda. Okay. Right? So let's perhaps immediately move to this voting procedure, and then we have a bit more time for the questions that you might have with respect to the presentation, right? So, you know the drill. You have the green and the pink card, right? This was a presentation from the European Welder Federation, right? So we have a clear sector perspective, and the question we ask you is, can sectoral organizations really be trusted to to award international qualifications? Again, if you think the answer is yes,
but
you can
maybe
show the green card. If the answer is a negative one, it would be the pink card. Yes.
It's the same thing. It's very general, the question. It depends upon the sector and upon the organization. So it's very clear. So if you give an answer to that and say no, you will...
But that then becomes the no. At this stage, we keep the question as such, and you can justify your position afterwards, okay? So might be that you say it's too generic, right? Or, well, let's see afterwards, right? Okay. Can I have your votes, please? Red and green cards, please. Okay. That's interesting. I see a more balanced view now compared to the other, but still predominantly green, right? So how would we assess this? Would this be like 80-20 or even more than 80? 80, yeah, so probably 90-10, something like that. Right, okay. So let's perhaps first go to the red cards, because there were a few of them. Right, so who had a red card? Could you explain why you have shown us the red card, please?
Yes, good morning. My name is Laila El-Khadraoui. I'm from the European Commission, so the DG on International Cooperation. So I chose red, not I mean, maybe also the question is not that it can't be trusted. I'm just wondering if it's the organization that should be awarding international qualification. In my personal view, it should be the national authority that should be awarding international qualifications, obviously in close partnerships with sectoral organizations. Yeah. But in my view, it's not a preferred organization for awarding
exactly.
that.
So this is a clear position that you say, no, it is not something that should be given in the hands of the sectoral organization. You have a very clear view on that. Okay, was there anybody else who had a pink card? Yes. Oh, okay, you want to answer already? No? Yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, okay, thank you for your comment. I tend to agree with you partially, at least. Ideally, you know, the thing that happens to us and probably to other international qualifications as well, I know that in the sector of IT they exist as well, is that they were established long before there were, you know, there was this policy for harmonization of qualifications in Europe and you know, the definition of national qualification levels and so on. And so I would suggest that ideally the best approach is actually to communicate. Yeah. So if the national authorities would communicate with the organizations in the country that award already international qualifications and vice versa, then everything would be aligned and it will be for the benefit of the people, so the trainees and the people that need the qualification.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. You have shown the pink card. Yes, please.
So I'm from Belgium, so I fully support Ms. Coutinho. If the question was, can we trust international sector federations like EWVF to do that? I would have given a green card. But this question is too generic. And why should I support this kind of European federation? Is because their governing board, their membership, they are national ones. And this is a big difference with other sector organizations. And the second reason why I gave red is when we are discussing leveling, we are entering in another discussion, but it's not the place today to go in that discussion. But if the question was, can EWF be trusted? Yes. And similar organizations, yes. But generic, no. Thank you.
So as a general principle, the answer is no for you, but for specific sectors it might be the case. Yeah. You want to respond now, or shall we move on?
I agree, of course. Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, of course, EWF is the best. No, but I think actually you are right. You need to be careful. Yeah, to who are the sectorial organizations and how well is the international representation and which are the organizations that actually represent each country in this organization. And you are right that in our case, since it's the National Welding Institutes or Welding Associations, that has been addressed a long time ago already. Yeah.
The reaction from Thomas to this, or would you like to explain your position? Okay, so you had a green card. Okay.
This is Thomas Meyer from Austria today, representing UAPME, which is a European social partner organization for crafts and small and medium-sized enterprises. I gave a green card, but to be honest, I'm very much in line with what Wilfried has said. It just tipped my balance a little bit to the green, obviously, because of course the right answer has to be it depends. Yeah, it depends on the sectorial qualification. So I think, and I would like to just develop this thought a little bit more, it depends very much on the governance behind a sectorial organization. If this governance ensures that it is representative, that industry has a well-meaning stake in it, and if it is, like in your case, about security and about harmonization, and you really have this governance principles laid down, and you have a quality assurance mechanism behind it, I mean, all I can say, yes, go ahead, and this is green. And so I think we have to be really careful when we speak about sectorial qualifications, when we speak about sectorial organizations, to distinguish what do we mean by them, first of all. Yeah. And I don't necessarily see that they have automatically to be national or national members. It could very well be the case that a truly international sectorial qualifications also has the right governance principles behind it, and therefore can be trusted. But to summarize, yes, the answer is it depends. It depends very much what you mean, and but still, if you put it so generally, I'd still give it a green card.
It's a conditional green.
Right.
Okay, good. Anybody else? Perhaps we have already. I would like perhaps to have somebody else that we haven't heard until yet. Okay, thank you.
I'm Wouter van den Berg. I'm also from Belgium. I agree with all the other intervenants, but I have another argument why I voted green, is that I think if it works well, it's a much more efficient system. Because it's led by the stakeholders themselves. Suppose these qualifications would be bad or bad quality or out of date, the feedback direction would be much faster than it can be to traditional systems. And overall, I think if one would measure the cost of the overall system, and there are financial aspects involved, that probably, if it's well done, it will be much more efficient and also more flexible over time than it would be based on national public authorities. And I think that's the reason I voted green.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. Perhaps one final position you have already given in the previous, so if there is anybody else, I would prefer that. If it's okay for you, yes, please.
Hi, I'm Melissa McEwen from Australia. I think in some ways the question's irrelevant because sectoral organisations will do it anyway. They're more agile than national governments and have a greater ability to do things quickly and be responsive. But the value is what is the value of those kinds of sectoral qualifications and international qualifications depends on how much they are valued by the industry themselves. So some of those concerns about governance and trust and so forth are actually something for the industry themselves to make a decision about. We as government can stay out of the way of those kinds of decisions. The only thing is where consumers need some protection and information about how valued those qualifications are. So in many cases, it's really an issue of consumer protection for students, potential students who might not understand that that qualification isn't valued by their industry. But in the case of something like the welding scenario, employers are only going to be using those international qualifications and giving them credence if they trust them themselves.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm looking at my watch, and I think we need to move on to the next block, the final block of this session. And let me introduce the following speaker. It's a lady. She's called Pauline Sutton, and she's part of the team at the Scottish Credit and Qualifications Framework. So she has a responsibility to promote the use and understanding of the National Qualifications Framework, primarily with employers. So the work is carried out through a series of workshops and specific projects with individual employers. And key initiatives are to support organizations through the credit rating process to allow their programs to be placed onto the SCQF, so the Scottish Credit and Qualifications Framework, and probably she will be explaining on that, because her presentation is on SCQF, which is, in her presentation, becoming a kind of a play of words beyond Scottish Credit and Qualifications Framework. Just as a last point, she is a qualified teacher and trainer herself, which means she has a very clear perspective also from her experience in that area. Pauline, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I think it's almost good afternoon, everybody. I don't know how to follow that. I haven't got any whizzy presentation. I've just got some basic facts and a few pretty pictures for you. So we'll see how we move on. But what I want to try and talk to you about today is how we as a national framework actually support and encourage employers to look at qualifications, and qualifications that can actually cross boundaries. As some of you may know, that we are just one of 4 frameworks within the UK, and we're very different. And that's the basis I'm going to work on. We're very different. So I'm hoping this is going to work. Right, so we're a fully integrated lifelong learning framework, and we support schools, colleges, universities, private training providers, companies, public and private, professional awarding organisations and charitable organisations. So basically anybody who has an interest in learning, teaching and development, we as an organisation will work with. So just to show you, the Scottish framework actually has academic and vocational qualifications already upon it. Totally, we have 11,500 qualifications. The diagram you see in front of you only shows what people would recognise maybe as true vocational qualifications, VET qualifications in terms of the SVQs and the modern apprenticeships. But actually behind our framework there are another 600 programmes that are formally recognised and accredited by organisations such as small employers, third party, large multinationals. So we do really work with everybody. And the reason we can work with everybody is because we have one simple, consistent process. To help employers, we're actually using the simple compare of the European framework with the 4 UK-based frameworks as well. The employer work we've been doing have found this invaluable, because they are now looking at the process of learner mobility. So if they can understand what's happening in Scotland, they can then understand what is happening not just within the rest of the UK, but is what's happening in Europe as well. So 2 very simple diagrams that are used on a very regular basis with our colleagues. So this is why, for us, it's a much simpler process to engage with a range of organisations and to work with employers who may have a multinational remit. We have one set of guidance that is used by everybody involved in this sort of recognition and validation process. We have one set of level descriptors, regardless of the type of the qualification. So whether it's one of our old ancient universities of Edinburgh or St Andrews, or whether it's a new multinational that's established itself in Scotland, everybody goes through the same process. As I said, we have one set of level descriptors and we have 4 key criteria. So any programme that is brought to the partnership for consideration must be based on learning outcomes. It must have an assessment process. It must be quality assured internally and externally, and it must have a minimum of 10 hours of learning. So it sounds simple, but what it means is everybody can make this process accessible. And the validation process is standard. So at the moment, the partnership doesn't do the actual validation of the programmes. There are key appointed, what we call credit rating bodies. So in Scotland, all our universities, all our tertiary colleges, and the Scottish Qualifications Authority, which is the National Qualifications Authority, are able to look at a training programme, whether it's a new qualification for schools, or whether it's an in-house continual professional development programme for a big multinational, and they can validate it, give it a level, and give it a number of credit points. The other organisations you see on there, some of you are maybe well familiar with, City and Guilds, the Chartered Banker Institute and Institute of Leadership and Management, and the Chartered Accountants in Scotland. They do the same process, but only for their own portfolio of qualifications. So same process, but they don't work with any other organisations. Okay, so that's basically the background, and it's because of that background and simplicity we can then work with employers. So how do we engage? We do have, for a small country, we do have quite a range of organisations that are very keen to engage with us and have their qualifications recognised. So as I said, we have multinational companies, we have sector skills councils, we have sectoral awarding organisations, trade unions, Federation of Small Businesses, Institute of Directors, Chambers of Commerce, and other employer membership organisations, which I'm sure all your countries have variations of. And it's very important for us because as a small team, we need to work in partnership. We're very much partnership driven. So we will support people through projects, through workshops and seminars, and we have actually just last month signed a 2-year memorandum of understanding with Scottish Trade Union through their union learning colleagues. So the workshops are to support awareness of resources available and how employers can best develop programmes for their staff. So our key mechanisms for engagement are credit rating, which you may call validation of qualifications. We can also use our set of level descriptors for recruitment and selection and for workforce development. Because we have the level descriptors, they have actually been contextualised into an employer toolkit. So employers can now look at levels and skills or skills gaps of their staff and decide how best to move forward. So we have 3 simple guides available for everyone to use. The first one supports an understanding of skills needed and how to write effective person specifications or job descriptions and how to recruit. The second one is about skills gaps, and the third one is the allocation of an SCQF level to a job role. It actually gives an indication of the level of knowledge and skills which a job holder at that level may require. So at the moment, we're looking at levels 4 to 12 or EQF 2 to 8. But we're doing a piece of work with National Health Education Scotland to expand that tool because they believe there's a need to cater for staff in lower grade positions and they still want to value the staff they are working with. So it's not a case of anybody below a certain grade is not a valued employee. They're looking at how they can develop the skills, the knowledge and competencies of staff across all levels. So that's a very important piece of project work that is almost complete. It will be by the end of December. So the benefits for employers, basically employers working across Europe are seeking obviously to maybe standardise and recognise common training programmes to enable employer mobility, although I have to say I was quite shocked this morning by the fact only 3% of Europeans are sort of mobile at the moment. But if an employee trains at a recognised standard in the UK, why should that person have to retrain when moving to another division of the same organisation? What we've found with a couple of our multinationals is that it's an increasingly competitive marketplace. There are skills gaps. We've seen evidence this morning that there are skills gaps. So how can an employer, and to quote one of our employers, how can it make them an employer of choice, not an employer of need? And they feel that engaging with the National Qualifications Framework can help them in that process. We also have great discussion over how a job description or a job advert is placed. Is it necessary when advertising a job post to put a specific qualification, or could you actually allocate a national qualification level or an EQF level? Too often in the UK, employers are asking for degree or equivalent, but have no understanding of what the equivalent is. So I think I'm a one-woman mission in Scotland at the moment to get everybody to talk in levels and not qualifications. Obviously, we recognise that some professions do demand certain qualifications. I hadn't appreciated that one of my colleagues sitting here was a doctor. So obviously, you know, we're not saying that everybody has to talk in those levels, but there are jobs out there, customer service, business and administration, maybe even some of the ICT roles, or they're becoming increasingly specialised, where you could actually look at a job role, and we're not being personal here, we're talking about job roles in terms of levels and not necessarily qualifications. There are benefits for employees as well. If they understand the level and qualifications they're working at, it can help them plan career pathways. It can help increase confidence and motivation, and it can aid learner mobility. So just an indication of how we are dealing with some of the cross-border qualifications. In finance, we have two organisations which are linked to European organisations, and I know there are colleagues in the room attached to that. They have qualifications sitting on the Scottish Qualifications Framework, also with EQF levels. ICT, Microsoft, Oracle, ECDL, also sitting on the framework, qualifications that cross international boundaries. I know we've had a colleague from Cisco speak, and Cisco aren't on there because their qualifications are very readily embedded into the Scottish Qualification Authority's for qualifications, but equally as important. National Examination Board on Occupational Health and Safety, global, some of you may have heard of it. Again, 120 countries, 600 courses, 50,000 students. All qualifications are recognised across nations. And finally, sport. For all of you skiing and snowboarding enthusiasts, you know, these 5 disciplines, 10 qualifications, all recognised across Europe. So just hopefully give you a little bit of food for thought of how we engage with employers, how we are trying to change a bit of a mindset. And it is, with employers, certainly in Scotland, it's about a cultural change. So we're just trying to offer help and support where we can, and to say, open everybody's minds. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Cool. Well, let's immediately jump to this voting exercise. So if we could have the question, please. Yes. Here we are. For the last question before lunch. You know the drill by now. You have green. Green means yes, you agree. Red or pink means no, you don't. So it's negative. And the question is, should employees
key stakeholders, not no, should they be key stakeholders in the development process of FET qualifications? And yes, you're probably going to say it is generic, right? But I prefer you to take a clear position and defend your position. Okay? Green or red? A couple of people who are not showing cards. Is this because you show the red in view of this majority? Okay. Well, who wants to explain this position? Who has a view on this? Why I'm not
I'm so happy with this question. Finally, a clear question for me. And I can clearly answer with green. I'm Agnes Rom. I'm representing here the European Trade Union Confederation, so actually the employees. And CEDEFOP had a conference in September, a peer learning forum on learning outcomes and qualifications and skills requirements. And it was very interesting because there was an example of a skills council of UK, which was led only by employers, and they defined all the time the skills. And at that time, I said the same, which I would like to say now, that we need to know, we need the knowledge of the workers who are in the daily work, because they know also, they sense the changes, the everyday changes. So it's not only the employees who have to be involved in the development of qualifications and changing skills. Of course, it has to be in cooperation, close cooperation with employers, employees, and governments. But employees have to have an essential role in it. Thank you.
I was very surprised. I thought it was going to be red cards. But no, I think the work we've been doing, I think it's very important, as you say, that we engage with the employees as well. I mean, at the end of the day, they're the people on the front line, they're the people doing the job. And I think some skills are missed if the employees aren't involved. And I'm a great advocate of, yes, you need your technical skills, but there's also a place for the softer underlying skills that are still needed to make you know, a fulfilled workforce, basically. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Comment on his or her position, or address a question to Pauline? Yes.
We had a lot of speakers this morning referring to innovation, and I think you need also the involvement of employees to run your innovation in industry and in the enterprise, because they are really doing the work, the job on the work floor, and they know what can be innovated. So they are a very important part of the process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please, and then I come to you. The green button. Yeah, that's.
I'm Jane von Derdelton from New Zealand, and I put the green card up for a slightly different reason. I think in the future, employees and students of all types are going to want to tailor their own qualifications and are wanting to put together sets of skills, and that's going to be really important for the future. And I think it's a new thing to try and engage with learners. We're not good at it yet, and I don't think a lot of other organisations that regulate in this field. I'm from the New Zealand Qualifications Authority, but it is something that we are thinking about and thinking how we can do, and I think it's an important thing for the future.
Would you then see the role of self-study grow in the future?
I think self-study is quite a big part of the system now. We're approving much more blended delivery than just about any other type, and that can be a mix of on-job, online, and projects and classrooms. And in some places, the same program is varied by the individual learner. Okay. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps, yes, for you.
My green card goes...
Yes, please put on the microphone. Push the green button. Yes. No, that's okay. There is a green button. Yes,
sorry.
that's it. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
No, no problem,
Apologies,
please.
really important. My green card goes beyond this formal representation of the workers and the employees in usually this national board to create the VET qualifications. I was before, now I'm working in a company. I will share my experience this afternoon. I worked before for the National Board of Qualifications in Portugal, and the dialogue with the social partners were very fruitful and very important, but in a lot of cases, the representatives of employees were not updated. There were more concerns about rights, and it's really important, but they were not exactly the best people to represent the most updated skills and the needs for equipment and so on. I'm sorry. I was thinking about other practice that we are developing, not only in Portugal, but in several countries, and this is my second hat concerning the European Vocational Association for training institutes, where each time we create an update qualification framework, we test it with real employees, and not only the qualification, but also the assessment of prior learning framework concerning, and this is we have done it in welding in Portugal as well with the help of the European Federation, and I think it's so much more fruitful to have real voices. We have done it in tourism, we have done it in healthcare, and this is really important to test it, like we do with a lot of tools, not only to have formal voices, but to test it and to have real voices. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. Since we are reaching the end, I think, of this session, I would like to address a question to all the presenters of this session. First of all, we represent an organization in Greece which provides vocational training to people with intellectual severe disabilities, Down syndrome, autism, etc. And at the same time, we have undertaken the possibility to claim their rights as far as, for example, opportunities in training, in education, in employability. So we have heard a lot about this accreditation system, the international qualifications, the credit system. But we just wonder that all this, should it be connected with the viability of an organization? For example, an organization that provides, let's suppose, quality services, especially to people of such a vulnerable category of people, people with severe intellectual disabilities, should it be associated with a viability connection, accreditation, quality system, quality certification, and viability of the organization? It's a question addressed to all the people that presented. Okay,
So
thank you very much.
Perhaps let's start with, who wants to start? Pauline, perhaps, or you?
I'll
Yeah?
start.
Okay, Pauline,
I
please.
think very, very good question. And that's why in my presentation I wanted to stress the fact that, you know, our National Health Organisation was very keen to look at how we approached working with people who maybe had either learning disability or autism or hidden disabilities. So we recognise it, and also recognise that every level in our framework, our lower levels, are specifically aimed at adults in those situations. So it is possible. I think it doesn't have to be as overcomplicated as it may seem, and I think the key to it is how you sell the concept to those people involved. Okay.
Perhaps Piotr?
I can quickly comment on this. This is a very important question for us, especially that the program which we run is in corporate social responsibility. So it's not only to help those which are very successful and ready, but also to address the disadvantaged groups. So this is a specific example of the disadvantaged groups. We have within CSR team people who are very passionate about going into this direction. They really want to do it because they believe this is the right thing to do. And it's not easy. It's not easy. We have part of the program present in, we have started, for instance, with the Institute for Blind and Deaf People So we have adopted some courses so that it can be used. We call the program the Disability Friendly Academy. And of course, it's not always the same to go to work with different disabilities. In the unprivileged part of the society, for instance, the prison system. Right, this is the group of part of the society where specific vocational trainings may help. And we have an example in UK working with Ministry of Justice, which oversees the prison system, the PICTA program, which shows clearly that if we apply industry standard training there, about 80% of prisoners don't come back to prisons, which is a big achievement, right? So I think that the industry should definitely focus on that. It's not easy, but we have to have the programs. I will be very happy to discuss with you a specific situation in Greece, because maybe this disability-friendly academy can apply.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps Louise?
Yeah, so I think I'm in a quite particular situation because my area addresses a specific sector and specific skills in welding, but I should tell you that we have actually addressed the possibility of including in the access conditions of our guidelines some examples or some conditions for people who have disabilities, but I must be honest, we don't know enough about it. Yeah. So we would be willing to do that, but when we go around Europe and the representatives of the National Welding Institutes, there was not enough knowledge. We tried, I think, years ago to get some funding from an European project to look at that, but we are not successful. And so we have not done much in that direction. But I know this is a profession that can be, there are people with disabilities that could do very, very good professions in welding and joining. So it's open for discussion, sure, of course.
Thank you for the answers. So probably this conference might offer opportunity to discuss this during the breaks. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm looking at the time. It's the end of this session, basically. There are 3 things left. One is to certainly thank the presenters once. That will be a panel member in tomorrow's discussions. I'm asking them to join me. We have reserved so that we can discuss certain aspects of how to proceed tomorrow. Right? And finally, I think I have to hand over the word to George, who will explain proceedings for lunch, tell us for this afternoon. George?
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for moderating very effectively this session and engaging people. I will not keep you long. You all deserve a good lunch. After your lunch, so at 2:30, you will go straight to the workshops. So it is better if you take your stuff right now. You will see the workshops you have selected. There is a list in your folder where it says workshop 1, 2, and 3. This is what you have selected. Workshop 1 stays here in Europa. Workshop 2 is in Montessori, the meeting room next to us, and workshop 3 is in Rousseau, further down. You will see also your names on the doors of the rooms with the names of the titles of the workshops that will take place. Your chairs, I will explain to you what will happen in those workshops, but then since we will not come back here today, I would like to remind you that at 6:45, we have a bus taking us to the dinner. So I hope most of you will join us, and I'm looking forward to the afternoon discussions, which will hopefully be very lively. So have a good lunch.